Welcome to Steph's podcast. Thank you so much for listening in every single week. As you guys know, I have a different guest who will come on the show and talk about all things ADU, all things multifamily, all things real estate investment strategies. And I'm very selective of who I have on. These are very highly vetted individuals, highly experienced people who have a lot of knowledge and a lot of value to bring to you guys every single week. If you have someone who you think might be a good fit for the show, make sure you guys reach out to me. And another way to stay connected, I know that some of you guys are listening in every single week on the podcast, and you may not know that I do have my active YouTube channel where I'm always sharing other sorts of tips and tricks on what I'm actively doing on myself as an ADU strategist and consultant and investor. And then also, make sure you guys reach out and follow me on Instagram, Steph Sells ADU. I constantly have different content on there showcasing a lot of what the strategies that we're talking about on this podcast, whether it's midterm, ADUs, multifamily, acquisitions, you name it, just property management, mom life, all the things. Make sure you guys follow me on there so we can continue to cultivate this relationship. Now, enjoy this episode, and I'll see you on the next one. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my podcast. I'm a little bit under the weather today, so excuse my voice. But I did not want to cancel or reschedule this episode because it's a really important one that, I'm excited to learn more about because it's something that we actually need day to day, but we don't really put a lot of thought into it. And so when it comes to real estate investing, ADUs, every single week, I bring someone different who has to showcase and share something that's working in their industry, but always pertaining to ADUs and real estate and how I can help you guys just build more mindfully, I guess, and, help you guys with like the top hacks that are working in today's market. So I have my really good friend Agapeh here, and she is a lighting specialist, which is pretty cool. She's an interior designer based out of LA. And her approach is rooted in the idea that light isn't just decoration. It's a powerful tool that shapes how we feel, which I feel that, how we interact with space. I mean, it really sort of dictates your mood, right? And these are like little subtle things that we don't pay attention to on a day-to-day basis, but we're going to learn about a lot of that today through her specialty. And just to highlight a couple of things here that I have in my notes before I hand it off to her. And this is episode 87, guys, by the way. She has been honored to be in the industry awards. I think she won the award, a 2019 IES Los Angeles Award of Excellence for Interior Lighting for work on the Nomad Hotel, and 2020 AL Designs Awards commendable achievement in exhibition lighting. So anything to do with lighting, she's just, radiates excellence when it comes to that. There's a couple more things that I have here, but maybe I'll hand it off to you so you could share with them like all these accolades and amazing things that you've been able to do within the lighting space, which, like I said, is something we just tend to overlook. And having the conversation with you when we met at the ADU mastermind that we had here in Miami, like I was so glad to meet you because a lot of what you said wasn't like things that I already knew, but I was already subconsciously doing them at home without even realizing like that's the reason why it's so important, right? And it was little things like dimming your lights at night to get yourself into a more like just a different phase throughout your day to get you to actually want to go to bed and kind of wind down. And then throughout the day, like you just taught me so much. I don't want to share with people how I'll have you do that, but that was super helpful. So yeah, welcome, Agapeh. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Steph. It was a pleasure to meet you as well. I'm excited to be here. I know that what I will share, my intention is to bring value to people that might not have the means to have a lighting specialist on their project, but every opportunity that I can find where I can share this wisdom and shed some light on this, I always take that opportunity because I do know what a big impact light can make in both an interior space and an exterior space, so any lived space really. A little bit about my background. I actually come from interior design. Prior to that, funny enough, I studied physics and astronomy, so I always had a fascination with light. Growing up, I always painted. So in my mind, what I've done is I've brought the two worlds together. So I say that I paint with a medium called light. And I think that it's a medium that not only visibly can make a difference, but it affects your body, your mind, your psyche, your performance. So it has so many elements that it touches. And unfortunately, it's overlooked sometimes because humanity is, positioned to like things that are tangible. We value things that we can touch and hold in our hands. And we don't give the same value and importance to things that we feel. So lighting in a built environment is exactly that. You can have the most beautiful finishes in a space, but if it's not lit correctly, they don't really come to life. And I understood this when I was working in interiors. I understood the importance of light when it came to designing interiors. We would be working on a project that had, it was several $1 million, and there were so many beautiful finishes being installed, beautiful furniture going in, but at the end of the day, nothing was rendering correctly, which was so frustrating, right? It's like you looked at the showroom and it looked so beautiful and everything, every tone matched and it all made sense. But when you brought it home, it wasn't making sense. It wasn't looking the same. So that's how I ended up where I am. I'm privileged to work on residential projects, hospitality projects, commercial projects. I've had the pleasure of also working on school districts, and that was very rewarding because students spend so much time in school, and this is our next generation. They're really affected by this medium. So using it to bring peace and coziness to a space would make the kids want to go to school and spend
Exactly.
time there rather than my memories of school were not very, beautiful. They're very utilitarian sort of spaces. So yeah, that's a little bit my background. I do know that your audience focuses specifically on ADUs, and as I mentioned, I want to be able to bring value to your audience. So, um, I want to talk about my home that I recently finished about a year ago. Um,
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you so much. It was, we joked that it was one of my largest projects because it wasn't large in scale, but it was definitely, it took so much time because you live with every decision you make. And it was interesting to sort of sit on the other side of the table
Mhm.
and be in the position of the client and really understand what are the challenges that they face when they're overloaded with, having to make decisions, how to simplify things, how to break things down for them so they really understand. Um, so we bought a property in LA, that's where I'm based, and we had really no intention of building an ADU on this property, but my husband has many clients who are brokers and real estate agents. When they came to visit, they said, you should seriously think about this because the laws might change. So we sort of built it without really having an intention for it to rent it out or anything like that. It was more like, I guess this will add value to the home, so let's just do it. When we sat with our architect, he gave us a very wise advice. He said, in LA it's really expensive to do a remodel and go live somewhere else. So why don't you first build the ADU, you move into the ADU, and then we'll start the remodel in the front house.
That's
So
smart.
that's what yeah, it was very smart. So that's what we ended up doing. We started with building the ADU, and then after moving into it, um, we took our time with the front house because we didn't really want to put spec grade finishes on the house. We wanted to feel like it's our own. The one thing that I will mention is we, when I was designing the two spaces, I always looked at it as a whole. I didn't look at it as two separate buildings, but it was like siblings, right? So one had to resemble the other. Now, I understood early on that the ADU would not be as grand as, let's say, the front house. However, there were certain elements that I wanted to implement in both, so that when you're sitting in the backyard and you're looking, you're seeing a resemblance between the two. And as
Mm.
you're navigating between the spaces, there are elements that are reminding you of one another. And this is something from both interiors and lighting perspective that I want to recommend to your listeners, because that was quite successful. Now when we host in the backyard and we sit there, it feels like it's a coherent design. From a lighting perspective, for the ADU, there were a couple of decisions that were made that were very impactful, which I will get into. But before I do, I just want to say how things played out. So we went into the ADU, we lived there for a little bit over a year, we finished the front house. We got our final permit in December of 2024, and
Wow,
not
recently.
the permit, sorry, the final inspection was passed.
Mm.
So we moved in over the holiday break, and right after the fires happened. So when we were sort of thinking, what do we do with this unoccupied space? I was using it as a design studio for myself, and the upstairs level was sort of unoccupied.
And
One of
just so people understand, like how close are you to where the fires happened?
Oh yeah, so we are located in Montrose, which is adjacent to Arcadia, and Arcadia was the one that was hit really bad. So it came close, but thankfully we were not affected by it. We're very thankful for that. But when one of our clients came, one of the brokers that had advised us to build the ADU came to see how the project had ended up looking like, he said, guys, I have my phone is ringing nonstop because there's so many people who were displaced by the fires, and there's a huge need for housing. So if you're interested, let's try to put this
Ten.
ADU on the market and see what happens. And in less than a week, it was rented. To my surprise, it was quickly rented. And it was one other thing that I want to point out is how you design a space will attract a specific person. And I know certain designers will literally make presentation boards around a specific client or
Avatar.
occupant,
Mm-hmm.
like an avatar, exactly. And I don't know which comes before the other, but they attract, that specific client or that specific occupant. So
Well, like I
that's
always say, if you're building your ADU, whether it's to rent it out or for you to live in it, what you said about both of the units being sort of like siblings to each other and it all
mhm,
feeling very cohesive, that's super important. And also, when you're building the ADU, if it's for a rental, I always tell clients like who you want to cater to and what type of tenant you want says a lot about what product you deliver. If you deliver a good quality product, you're going to attract good quality tenants. And then with the
yeah,
lighting, it's like even up a notch because people who are paying attention to lighting or small details like that is a whole different type of tenant, right? With a different mindset. So that's key right there. That's so true.
yeah, yeah. It was interested that, in my case, I wasn't really designing for an avatar. I was simply designing for myself.
Right.
But that actually helped attract a tenant that is very similar to us.
You, exactly.
Yeah,
Same
and
here. Yeah.
it makes such a good neighbor for us.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, so uh, we love our tenant, and he's actually a scientist from NASA who works at JPL. And when I explained to him the lighting technology that was installed on this ADU, which I will talk about
Mhm.
shortly, um, he was first of all, he understood the science behind it and
Right,
was
right.
blown away. And I mean, it's interesting. He will text me, you know, here and there and say, I just cannot thank you enough for building this space the way that it is. I can't imagine myself living somewhere else. Like, I need this lighting technology wherever I go. Yeah, so it was very rewarding to also, as a designer, see how a tenant feels at home and feels comfortable in a space with, you know, lighting being such a huge factor in it. Because honestly, this space is quite simple and it's small. ADUs are.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but
100%. You're like
it
400 to 600 square foot spaces. You could only do so many
do so
layouts.
much. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I have to say the most special thing in that space is the lighting. Okay,
Yes, I agree with you on that. And I haven't
so
even seen it, but I could, I mean, knowing you and your vision, I could totally see that. So
yeah,
him
so
being
I'll
in
tell you.
NASA, he was probably like blown away, and more so because he understood it from the scientific perspective.
Scientific
Yeah.
perspective. Yeah. So there is a technology on the market. It's called tunable white. And I'll explain what that is. So tunable white is, let's just go to nature first. Let's start there. We have an internal clock and it's called a circadian rhythm, okay, that we follow.
Mhm.
And this is in sync with the movement of our star, the sun, across the sky. So when the sun comes up over the horizon, when it rises, it goes through, number one, it's dim, it's not very bright. Number two, the color temperature of the light is warmer. Okay. As the sun rises over the sky, it goes through less and less atmosphere. So when it's directly overhead, thank you. When
And
it's
sharing.
directly, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think the first image is perfect actually.
Okay, let me click
Um,
this one here.
there's a delay. Yeah, that one.
Let's see. Is it sharing? Wait, no, I have to remove and
While you're doing that, I'll talk about
yes.
it. So when it's directly overhead, it's called nadir in astronomy, and that is when right there at the peak, it's right overhead, and that's around noon. That's when the sun is at its coolest color temperature. Now, as it starts going back down from nadir towards the horizon, it starts moving through more and more atmosphere. So it tends to get warmer and warmer until it sets. That's why we have something called the golden hour, because the sun is so low in the sky and it goes through so much atmosphere that it gets the rays of sun get diffracted and it shifts towards the red end of the spectrum. Now,
Mm,
what happens in this process? When you're waking up, your body is coming out of REM sleep, right? So you are slowly coming out of that state, and as you're going so you're still not fully awake until the sun goes higher and higher, so the intensity and the color temperature build up, and
mhm.
as it becomes noon, let's say it's noon and it's at the peak of the day, you're in the middle of your workday, that's when it's at its brightest and at its coolest. So there has been a some research done around this, that whenever you light a space with cooler colors, that's for high performance. So, for example, if you think about
Yes.
any political sort of buildings, hospitals,
School.
airports,
School.
schools, those are lit with really cool color light. That's because they are trying to make you hyper aware to complete a certain task. Now, when we move into the hospitality space, we want the occupant to feel very relaxed and calm, right? So the color temperature shifts towards the red, so the warmer colors. Now, whenever you dim LED lights, because we didn't always have LED lights, we used to have halogen lights. Halogen uses a filament to light the space versus LED is more digital. What they noticed is that whenever they would dim the lights, it would become sort of gray, right? And it would become the colors in the room were not really rendering correctly. So the industry understood that there's a gap between the halogen fixtures and the LED fixtures. They're not functioning the same. Along with the research that was found from, I'm sorry, I didn't really finish my thought earlier. That the research that was done by NASA for the astronauts that were going to space, they realized that these astronauts are now out of sync because they don't have the same cycle in the sky. So now they're not being able to really rest. So these two things that were happening at the same time, they brought forth this dimmable white, tunable white technology on the market. So what you can do is you can install there. Now these are two different technologies, but I'll just get into the one of them because that's more appropriate for hospitality and residential buildings. It's called dim to warm technology. So what you do is as you dim your lights inside of the house, the light shifts towards the red end of the spectrum. So there are three control channels. One is power on, power off. So input of power. The other one is how red or blue, for the lack of language, or how warm and cool the light is. And then the last one is how bright the light is. So as you dim it, it gets warmer and less intense. Well, this is the technology that I installed on my home. And my tenant, being a scientist, understood this.
Right.
And he reported back that this has helped him immensely with his sleep cycle.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
At nighttime, you see that blue light there? And I have on both stands, and I have a small one, they all turn to red, or I change them to red light at night. And then not only do I change the color, I also dim it a lot more with the red light because it could be like a really bright, type of red. But that's my go-to, and now my body's so used to it, like I can't go to sleep without red light. And I have it in the living room, so usually like an hour, 2 hours before we're going to bed. Probably more than that. Like I usually go to bed at 9, so around 6:37 I'm starting to dim everything in the living room and the bathrooms, everywhere throughout the house. Like there's no bright lights. And in the morning it's kind of the total opposite. I wait for lighting, natural lighting to come in. And then at some point right now I'm dealing with this type of lighting versus the window light, right? I'm dealing with like LED bright lights, as you said, for high performance for podcasts or Zoom calls or whatever. It's a different type of lighting and setting. And that's made a huge impact in how I like do business, to be honest, because it really plays a role in how you feel, the moods that you're in. I travel a lot, and I'm sure you notice this a lot too. Like in certain hotels, the lighting sucks. Like you can't perform well. You can't have a way to wind down or to even, get productive because there's like no lighting near the office desk that they set up, or, there's like no dimmers. Dimmers are such a key point that you brought up, that I think even for a small ADU space, like if you could just install dimmers versus your on and off black and white type of lighting, like being able to dim it to those warmer colors would make a huge impact in your health, right? Because we've also seen how the infrared saunas and just like red lighting, how good it is for us. And so I think that lighting plays a role that deep to where it really dictates how you feel and like what thoughts come into play versus like,
your sleep cycle.
Everything. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I want to mention, you brought up dimmers, which I think are, like a great wall switch dimmer is it's only I want to say a $10-15 adder to your expense. But I do want to mention one thing. It's always nice to have layers of light in a space. So when you rely on one layer of overhead light, you are asking one layer to do a lot of work. That's when you feel like you need to blast this light all the way up to be able to work or function or see things in this space. But what I want to encourage your listeners is that when you think about lighting from, I'll just mention 4 different perspectives. One is let's just look at it from a painting's perspective. When you're painting, when you're looking at a painting, there's always a background color, right? There's a
Right.
color that sort of holds the composition. That's your ambient light. That's the light that's it's a blanket of light that covers the space, okay? Now, there is a second layer of light that's specific to a task that you need to do within a space. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're in a bedroom. Let's use that as an example. And let's set up the furniture. It's a bedroom. There's a bed. There's 2 nightstands. There is, let's say there's a recliner that you sit at and you read at nights before you
Right.
get in bed.
Right.
So the recliner actually needs a reading light, okay? The bed on either side needs another layer of light that doesn't sort of glow up the entire room, but it actually intentionally creates shadows within a space so you can have this cozy
Cozy.
cave-like
Yeah.
feeling. Now, what if you need to get dressed in that space and it's nighttime? So now you need that ambient glow within the space that will brighten up the room so that you can actually get ready. So those are the overhead lights. That's one example. Now, if there is a more luxury home that has specific finishes within a space, architectural details in the space, it has something that you want to highlight, then in that case, there's another layer of light that you can introduce that accents those elements within a space. So that becomes a 4th layer of light. And decorative lighting could function as, a piece of jewelry within a space. So that you can put in as a sparkle rather than something that, sometimes you see these chandeliers that are blasted with intense light and you can't really appreciate the sparkle that's coming out of it because you're distracted by the glariness of it. So
Right.
in cases like that, don't rely on it as your primary source of light, rather as a jewelry piece within the space.
That's such a cool concept of just like understanding what each lighting's role is within our environment, right? That creates, like you said, the the ambiance, but then also like narrowing it down to a specific task, to a specific area, because that's kind of how I have it set up too.
Yeah, and to go full circle to the lighting controls and dimmers, right? So now when you have, let's say, 3, 4, or even 2 layers of light, separate the dimmer switches for each source so that you can individually control them. So
Right.
not everything is dimmed at the same time, but you can actually play with
With
what
color.
light is higher in intensity and what is lower. So you can actually assign visual hierarchy to a space rather than everything is important, right? So there was a study done that they looked at how your eye moves and dials as you look at an image. And they actually noticed that the first thing that your eye goes to is the brightest thing within the space.
Hmm.
So whatever that has that brightest intensity in a space, that's your highest that's your hierarchy, visual hierarchy in the space,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you can intentionally use that, like in retail design, we use this all the time to take you exactly where you need to go,
Yeah.
right? So
Highlighting focal point to that specific area that you want them to go to.
exactly. So if we want to, like, for example, apply that within, um, let's say, a bathroom, you can create a highlight on a wall, be
Hmm.
it with a cove light, with inverse cove light, or whatever, to highlight a tile that you spend a lot of money on. So now we're not tiling the entire room, we're tiling one wall, we're lighting that wall intentionally. So now when you go in there, you perceive that wall to be you perceive the entire space to
Hmm.
feel more luxurious because your eye focused on what was luxurious inside of that space.
I love that. Yeah, especially, I mean, for high end places, I've seen. those lights that go underneath like surfaces, like underneath the cabinets or underneath, like underneath the, even like on the island. Have you seen those lately that have lighting all throughout the entire island?
You
Which
mean the onyx backlit, like
yes,
backlit onyx and stuff? Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it like you said, it's just you cater differently based on the purpose and the place. So retail requires specific type of lighting, but your home is one that we can all begin with, right? Whether it's your property or one that you're going to rent to someone. I think thinking about the functionality of your life and how you kind of deal with lighting, and maybe you don't deal with lighting and you haven't thought things through, but now this episode kind of helps you restructure your own home. You kind of start there and then take those same principles when you're designing your own ADU, whether it's for yourself or for someone else, because I guarantee that tenant that you have is very happy there. And so retention is like key, right? When you have tenants as well, is not having to renew the lease and find a new tenant every single year. If you
Mm-hmm.
can deliver a good product, these tenants will want to stay there longer.
Yeah.
Right, which I'm assuming, by the feedback he's giving you on the lighting, it may be more of a long-term type of tenant that will actually care about maintaining and keeping up with your property, because they appreciate what the work that you've kind of put into it, the energy with lighting.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that you use the word energy, right? Because
Mhm.
I think lighting is, it's funny to say this, but it's almost like music where you're creating a vibe, it's a mood, it's an energy in the space. So actually a lot of times people will not feel good in a space and they don't understand why. Because it's not a tangible thing that they're feeling.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a vibe that's off, right? So um I want to end on this thought that think about lighting as the vibe within a space. And if the vibe is good, just how if the vibe or the music at a party is good, you're going to stay longer, is the same. If the lighting in a space feels comfortable, you will linger longer.
100%. And I think it goes as deep as healing, right? Like certain types of lighting will at least create a safe space for you to be able to heal and process
Yeah.
emotions and feel your feelings, or just feel safe. Many
Yeah.
times we don't feel that. And so you're right. You could go to a place and you just don't understand, like the vibe is off, the energy is not there. And it could be simply that lighting. So now you guys know how to kind of spot out a new place and look at and pay attention to lighting whenever you're out now. Because after our conversation, like I felt like I already paid attention a lot to lighting, but you kind of took it to a whole other level. And maybe I pay attention to it because I'm in the real estate space. We're in this business where we're constantly having to, I don't have to give advice on lighting, but it does come about in the conversation. And I like to give my input with clients when they ask for it. But you helped me really like take it 2.0 level to where like now I'm more cognizant when not just in my own home, but
Mm-hmm.
with others, right? And this is for anybody who wants to build one ADU or 100, right? Because when we're talking big multifamily buildings in LA, you can build 20 to 30 to 40 ADUs. And so taking that same principle that you did with making sure that your main home was, and the ADU was sort of an extension of the main home and they all integrated together. When you're adding 30 ADUs to a multifamily unit building, like that's going to be key. How do you make all these units kind of just like merge in together to the entire
Mm-hmm.
building, which may take some renovations on the existing building, right? Because in your case, the good thing was that you built the ADU, and well, you designed both with the coherence in mind, but you moved into the ADU and then had time to renovate the main home. Many times people are just building the ADU and aren't really looking at how they can keep integrity of both, especially when the main home is like so much older, like a lot of the homes in LA. But I'm sure there's still a lot of different ways that you could integrate both and have them both feel like they belong and it's all aesthetically pleasing probably through lighting, and that's probably one of the most cost effective ways as well to kind of get started, right? If you can't remodel your main home to make it look like the ADU, maybe you could start off by getting those dimmers, right? Or like just switch up the lighting to kind of have it match the ADU. Maybe start off with some fixtures, little things, that would help it all come together for sure. That's kind of what I learned today from the episode.
Exactly. And there's one other layer of light that we didn't really mention, but we talked about it last time. I think it's landscape lighting. That's really
Oh
important.
my God,
So,
yes, yes,
yeah, so if your ADU, for example, mine does, and that's why I bring it up. If your ADU has one huge sliding window that opens up to the backyard,
yes,
it's really important that you put landscape lighting in. Why is that? Number one, you don't want that fishbowl effect to happen at night where the tenant feels like they don't know who's out there looking in. It really comes down to psychology. Secondly, what it does is it makes the space appear larger. Just how in the morning, when you look out the window, it feels like your space is expanded into the backyard. The same effect happens in the night hour where, if the landscape lighting is not there, it's going to look completely dark like a black screen.
right.
Now that black screen becomes uh, illuminated and your eye goes beyond. So it extends the space.
That's key right there because I did a podcast on landscaping for ADUs because a lot of people build the ADU, but then they don't put thought into even if it's 200 square foot space of landscape, like you said, if it's opening out to the backyard or the short, small patio space that the new tenant has access to, you should definitely consider landscaping. But I didn't talk about the lighting with landscaping, and that's a very important detail because you can have the nice Mediterranean low maintenance landscape or whatever type of landscape you want, but without the lighting, it doesn't enhance it, especially at night, right? Or yeah, most of the time, but I think it just appears a lot bigger, a lot more welcoming, and it feels a lot more enclosed, like it's a home, not just an apartment,
Right,
right?
right. And honestly, it adds value both to you
Both, yeah.
and to the tenant. So it's one of those spaces that both can really enjoy and appreciate.
Hmm.
And if there is a water element, don't, take the landscape lighting beyond, illuminate the water that's moving because, that movement of water is very therapeutic.
Very
Both,
therapeutic. Hmm.
yeah, both the sound and the variation of the movement that you see within it, that
Right.
flow of back to energy, that flow of energy, right? Watching that is very soothing.
Yeah.
So don't stop just at the plantings. Think about what other elements you have within that space that could be illuminated.
You're right, because it is all energy. I was watching this movie with my son. I have to send it to you. It's in like Lego figures, but it's the Pharrell movie. So it talks about like his journey through music. And right now, when you said music is kind of like colors and lighting, he talks about that in the documentary, which
Mm,
he says when he was younger and he used to make the beats and do all the music, he could see certain keynotes in a color, like it
yeah,
just came to his mind that way. And I think he could probably see things that we don't have that eye for. But I'm a big believer that it's all just energy, right? It's another way to communicate with each other, amongst each others in our environment. So yeah, it's just like a hidden language that we all kind of speak to some extent, but not, I wouldn't say like full versed in it, until you really start like focusing on it. So this
yeah,
was super helpful. I hope that you guys got a lot of it because, this was just a little glimpse of her knowledge and her expertise. And as you guys know, she has experience through not just building her own ADU, but hotels, creating spaces in hospitality, retail, you name it. So, how can people connect with you if they were interested in maybe working with you, collaborating with you? Whether it's lighting services, design services for an ADU, or a shopping center, or, like, I don't know, you seem to do it all, whether it's residential or commercial. How can they connect with you?
They can reach me at agapelighting.com,
Okay.
and on Instagram, same, Agape Lighting.
Amazing. And I'll be tagging her, you guys. So make sure you guys follow her, share her information. And if you're ever interested, just reach out to her or reach out to me. I'll make the introduction. I'd be more than happy to. And that's it for this one, guys. I really want to thank you, Agape. That was amazing. And thank you. Thank you so much. Any closing thoughts? Feel free to share.
Just want to say thank you as well for the opportunity. I hope that this brings value to your listeners, and
It
happy
did.
lighting.
And selfishly, it brought a lot for myself too. So that
Amazing. I'm
was
so
good.
glad.
Amazing. Well, hopefully, I'll see you next month. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm tapping into this ocean healing journey of mine, which ocean has helped me tremendously in my healing journey. It helps me on my day-to-day business, being able to homeschool Alex, work from home, work a business. Like being near water has been very, very healing for me. So I'm going to start incorporating these ocean healing sessions for women in business. And the first one will be November 15th. So for any of my women listeners, if you guys want to join, just reach out to me. There's going to be other women in business who are not only in the real estate space, but just, other types of businesses, and figuring out how we can help each other, not through just like healing and helping each other overcome certain like traumas, but helping us self-regulate and then helping each other in each other's businesses, which I think is key. So hopefully I'll see Agape there, but if any of you guys are interested, let me know, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Send me the info. I would be super interested.
I will. Sounds good.